What's going on, guys? RBG here, bringing you a video on something that hasn't really been talked about on this channel, which is Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, the game. It's something that's gotten my attention since it was revealed, but it hasn't necessarily been on my radar, if that makes any sense. Which a lot of you are probably scratching your head, right? Because this channel is smothered in discussions pertaining to Marvel related video games, especially as of late with the recent announcements of Marvel Spider-Man 2 and the new Wolverine game. So yeah, the red and white brand have essentially become synonymous with RBG, because I love the universe and what it has to offer. And it seems like a fever dream that I live in an era where we're seeing these games being developed by some of the biggest companies in gaming. But with that said, Guardians of the Galaxy wasn't one of those Marvel properties that I was salivating at the mouth to get a AAA game for. Although I enjoyed their recent success on the movie side of things, I've never really been a fan of that specific group of characters. Not to mention they've kind of seen their fair share of appearances in video games, so I wasn't all that interested in talking about their latest venture in this genre. But after getting an early hands-on experience with the game thanks in part to Square Enix, I can honestly say that I'm looking forward to seeing what they have to offer in the full version. Firstly, I just want to say that this video will be my 100% honest impressions. As I mentioned, this channel does feature a lot of Marvel related games, but I'm in no way being restricted in terms of my critiquing. If you've been rocking with me for a while, then you know I tell it like it is, whether it be good or bad. So yeah, I just thought I'd clarify that before we dive in. But anyways, like many of you, I was a bit bummed and confused why this game wouldn't allow you to fully control all the Guardians members. It's arguably the biggest elephant in the room when it comes to how Eidos-Montreal chose to go about their direction in terms of gameplay. Not to mention it feels like a wasted opportunity since all the members are very unique and distinctive from one another. If I were to compare it to anything, it would have to be Final Fantasy 15, because that game suffered from the same stigma of being this title that boasts all these cool characters, but you're restricted to one of them. And it's a bit funny and ironic because these two games are published by the same company. I'm not sure if the original idea was to allow fans to play with all the characters, but I'm hoping that Eidos-Montreal considers following the same path as FF15, where they implement a character switch feature in the near future. Like, I'm all for the single player and story driven experience, but I feel that this game should at least allow you to switch between characters on the fly. But despite that gripe, the gameplay works quite well. I was expecting it to be a mindless button masher, but there's a lot of complexity when it comes to your approach, and it feels like it's going to offer a wide range of flexibility with how you choose to play. Like, even though this game has been described as an action-adventure game, I don't think it fits that description. If you ask me, this feels more like an action RPG. So if you're one of those gamers who loves titles like Kingdom Hearts and the previously mentioned Final Fantasy 15, then you're going to have a blast playing this game. It's almost as if that's what the devs had in mind and they wanted to present it in the same vein as other Square Enix titles. What's even more fitting is that the main character Star-Lord features elemental abilities similar to that of magic users from Final Fantasy, but instead of those abilities being executed via a magic wand, he has his blasters, which range from fires to ice. Just want to disclose that the build that I got to play with only had the ice, or it could have been that I didn't find the option to upgrade to the other elements, but the ice feature alone made the gameplay very intuitive. By pressing the right top bumper, I could let off a rapid fire of ice blasts, which over time could cause an enemy to enter a freeze stagger. It also allowed me to immobilize shielded enemies that couldn't be hit by normal energy blasts. Once those enemies are frozen, they're more susceptible to damage than they would have been without the status effect. And depending on the enemy type, they can be dismantled if they're frozen. Or you can perform a command to get your teams to do it, which you're gonna need to utilize properly if you want to stand a chance in this game. Like, I wasn't expecting Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy to be difficult, but depending on the mission, it can get pretty steep in the challenge department. I believe I was on mission 5 and I had a fair share of deaths, and this game is all about making the right decisions on and off the battlefield. So depending on what you do or say will determine how effective you will be in combat. Like, for example, there's this part where the Guardians visit the Nova precinct to pay a fine, but all the Nova members are nowhere to be found. And the only thing the Guardians can find is a helmet that relays a mysterious message. And Star-Lord has to decide whether he wants to relay a message back or proceed to the precinct to figure out what's going on. I don't want to spoil too much, but let's just say I went with the first option, which led me to getting in a big standoff that could have easily been avoided if I had trusted my team and went with the latter decision. I'm not sure how far Eidos-Montreal is going to push the relationship system with the other Guardians members, but if they do it right, it will add to a lot of replayability. But getting back to what I was saying about the RPG aspect of this game, besides Star-Lord being the run and gun character, you have others such as Gamora, who will be a mix of speed and power. Drax, who will also boast power and will be able to utilize certain objects laid throughout the level, Rocket, who will be sort of a crowd control type character, and Groot, who will utilize his mystical powers to provide defense for your team. By holding the left bumper and pressing the 4 respective command buttons, you can call them in both combat and exploration. I really enjoyed this system because it goads the player to think fast. Like whenever I was surrounded by jobber enemies, I could command Rocket to let off a barrage of missiles and explosives to clear them out. And if I was fighting a bigger shield-wielding powerhouse enemy type who's good at deflecting attacks, I could command Groot to perform a move called the Mammoth Grab, where he restricts them in vines, which allowed me to move behind them and hit them where they're mostly exposed. You can also mix certain commands, which can lead to some of the most devastating and creative attacks. But all of these maneuvers won't be spammable. They'll have a cooldown meter which indicates when you get to use them again, so you'll need to pick and choose when to use them. Like, this game feels like a more complex version of Ultimate Alliance, where you have more unlockable moves and you can do more things within the RPG realm. For example, if by any chance you die, you can equip an ability called the Gift of Flore, which allows Groot to revive you. The list goes on and on. But besides the team command system, you have this awesome ability called the Huddle, where if you get enough kills, you can press the left and right bumper to call the team to you. It's like this fourth wall breaking thing where the Guardians members huddle up in the midst of all this crazy chaos, and Peter will give them commands on what they should do, and it grants buffs such as faster cooldowns for the team moves and healing. But you have to select the right answer to get the full effects. So for example, right, if you're already dominating on the battlefield, the team will start to talk a little cocky, and it'll be up to you to make sure that they don't get overconfident. Or if they mention that they're feeling a bit discouraged, you'll have to give that big hoorah to get them back motivated. After you've done that, a song from Star-Lord's Walkman will start playing, and if you ask me, it really fits with the battles. The Guardians members will even comment on how the music is making them feel more pumped. So I think you guys are gonna love that aspect of the gameplay. Anyways, once you fill up the stagger meter on some of the stronger enemy types, you can inflict a solo or team finisher, which, if I'm gonna be honest, can be unfulfilling and a little janky to look at times. Like if an enemy just so happens to be frozen and their stagger meter is full, Star-Lord will perform this weird drop kick that doesn't look impactful, and although team attacks provide some variety, they'll still ultimately end with Peter performing the same drop kick. And there's a possibility that the version of the game I played doesn't represent what will be in the full version, but considering the fact that it went gold by the time Idol submitted it to me, I'm thinking that's what it'll be like in the full version, man. I feel like this game is going to be a hit or miss when it comes to the way it executes certain things, because other than the gameplay, some of the other aspects feel uninspired, such as the puzzles. Like, it's cool what they do with Star-Lord's helmet, such as using the detective mode from the Arkham series, but the way things are implemented feel tacked on just to give you more to do. A lot of games are guilty of this, but it's all about the execution. So if you're the type of player that expects a little more creativity out of things like puzzle solving, you might find yourself rolling your eyes anytime you have to solve them in this game. I also feel like the visuals might be hit or miss. I knew the graphics were going to take a hit since I was playing via a Parsec stream, but even when you see the game in full 4K, there are a few scenes where the game has these funky textures. I mean, I think the PS5 and Xbox One X will get the best out of it, but since it has been developed for the last gen hardware, there'll obviously be some graphical limitations. Not to mention that there might be some design choices that fans won't be too high on. Like, I've come to appreciate it, but I haven't completely accepted Gamora's look just yet. I know it's comic accurate, but there's just something about her armor that's not clicking with me. But thankfully, there's ways to supplement this, since you can access costumes, which can be obtained by simply unlocking them and not through microtransactions. So if you want to make Drax look more like his MCU counterpart, you can do that. In terms of other gameplay features, I can't really form an opinion since I haven't played them. The spaceship battles weren't playable, but I can say that the Milano is fully explorable and will serve as the main hub where you build the stronger bonds with all your teammates. So yeah. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys. There's obviously more I could have harped on, such as the dialogue, but I wanted to mainly focus on the gameplay. But from what I've heard, the dialogue sounds fine. That's going to be one of the key components in terms of the game's narrative and gameplay. Overall, I think this is a game that you should definitely keep a lookout on, especially since we're literally a month away from its release. But with that, I think I'm going to turn it over to you guys. What are your thoughts on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy? Have you been hyped since the reveal? And did my impressions affect your decision on whether you want to purchase it or not? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I ask you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future videos. But if you really enjoyed this video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared with all your friends and followers on social media such as Twitter and Facebook. Sharing really makes a difference. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another Marvel related video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.